Deon Meyer, 1 July 2020. And today I'm in Stellenbosch in South Africa.
Goeiedag, Deon Meyer. How are you today? And what are you feeling towards all we've been living those last months?
Well, I'm very well today. How I feel, it's been a crazy time, you know. I mean, it's been a roller coaster of emotions and thoughts. When this thing started, uh, nobody knew that it was going to grow this huge. It was going to have this major impact on just about every country in the world. There was a time that I very much thought of my own novel, L'année de Lion, or Fever in English, because that is about a coronavirus that decimates humanity to a large extent. And then you get scared because of all the research I did back then for the book. I knew what was possible. You know, and then you realize with great relief that it's not so bad. But then you see how badly internationally countries are responding. Our own government, although their ideas were great and their intentions were great, the way that the lockdown rules were imposed, I don't think it was always well executed. So it's been a roller coaster. It's been crazy. It's been surreal. Never would I have thought that in my lifetime we would see something like
Of course. Now, you believe that the more we read, the more we learn things. What did you learn through writing and through reading, especially in these amazing times?
Well, I think what you know, there's a big difference between learning things through writing and learning things through living, uh, because I think all authors are idealists, and we want to explore the world through books. It's a very safe environment. Writing is a safe place to explore the world, to explore humanity, to explore what it is to be human. But it's safe. There are no big risks involved. And you learn different things from that. And I think from writing, uh, you learn that people are perhaps inherently good. But then when you live and you look at the world around you and you see what is happening, then you realize that we are not all inherently good. And there's the good and the bad within humanity, which will always be against one another and be in conflict with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there are so many things that you learn through both of them. I think especially writing, for me, writing in this period was very strange. I found it very hard to concentrate. You are a little bit anxious for news, what is happening all over the world, what is happening in your country. My oldest daughter lives in Italy, and with Italy having been really hard hit, you know, you're worried about your children. My mother is 90 years old. She's in a retirement home here in Stellenbosch. You worry about her, and that really distracts from the concentration of writing. So it's been a very weird writing process to me. I've never had so much difficulty writing for an extended period of time. I would write for an hour and then I would lose concentration and then I had to go back again. So it's been pretty tough.
Of course. Can you just move a little because you have the sun here on your
Yeah,
face?
yeah, I see that.
Okay,
Is
this
that
way is
better? I'm,
yeah.
I'm trying to close that a little bit up.
I,
Okay,
I know the more on the other side, like you were. Yeah,
there
then
you are.
yeah, no, I see you perfectly. Thank you. Now in your new
Okay.
novel, which is called Prooi in Afrikaans and will be translated as La Proie at Gallimard, coming out in August. You have this title that is very nice and very symbolic of what we've been living today. In what way would you say that coronavirus has transformed us all as preys, as proos?
Well, we are prey. We are prey to the virus. We are prey to the economic impact of this virus. I mean, the economic impact has been just incredibly devastating, especially in South Africa. The number of people who have lost their jobs in South Africa, our biggest problem is poverty, and it has deepened up our levels of poverty. And in that way, we are all prey to this virus. We also prey to the bad decisions of governments and politicians internationally.
And how about praise of life?
Uh, I'm not sure I follow.
How are
You
we?
mean that we can die from the virus?
No, usually, how are we in everyday's life without even the virus? Praise of life, of death, because we tend to forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, we are very much we have a limited lifespan, and we are all constantly prey. In South Africa, with its high levels of violence, we are also prey to the bad elements out there. I write crime fiction, and crime fiction is about predator and prey, so it is something that is always on my mind.
Of course. Now, nowadays, reality seems sometimes even stronger than fiction. And as you were telling us, you wrote this book called Fever, which is L'année du lion, published in 2016 by Le Seuil, where you imagine that 95% of the world population dies of coronavirus. Why was it so creepy for you to realize today this coronavirus really exists and really so dangerous?
Well, I knew that the coronavirus existed because when I did my research for L'année de Lyon, in 2013, 14, 15, I spoke to a professor in virology at the University of Stellenbosch called Professor Wolfgang Preisser. And I asked him what sort of virus would be able to have that sort of an impact on humanity. And he did a bit of research, and he came back to me and he said, well, a coronavirus is probably the best candidate. The good news, he said, was that a coronavirus would never be as dangerous as the one that I had in the book. The viruses are very interesting in that when they infect you, they need to keep you alive. Sorry, they need to keep you alive for a certain period of time so that you can infect enough other people. So if they kill you too quickly, then the virus dies out. I think something like Ebola in Central Africa is a good example of the people who are infected die so quickly that the spread of the virus isn't that so fast. So it's a delicate balance in terms of the time of from infection to death, and then obviously the rate at which people die of the virus. Um, I started when I first heard of the virus coming from China, and I heard it was a coronavirus. I had actually forgotten that I used a coronavirus in the book, and it was only when it really started spreading and it jumped across the ocean to America and then to Europe that I went back to the book and I realized that there were similarities, and that was pretty creepy. But again, I was very aware of the fact that the death rate was much lower than it ever was in my book. I think the most creepy thing for me was in the book, I described how we internationally have systems in place against such a pandemic, but that the systems failed us because of human error, because of human attitude. And that to me was the big creepy part, was that I actually saw that happening in real life with COVID-19.
Now, writers are usually considered sometimes as prophet. Now, you were a journalist before being a writer, and when you write your book, you are doing a lot of research, a lot of investigation, as you just said. If you, as a writer, knew this virus existed and could possibly explode one day, why was the world, why were politicians so blind about it?
It's a question that I've been asked before, and I think it's not a simple answer. In the last 20 years, we've been living in a very strange period where politicians everywhere and politics everywhere has been very polarized. You've seen the rise of nationalism. You've seen the rise of liberal democracy. You've seen a lot of other conflict. You've seen huge economic problems internationally with meltdowns, economic meltdowns all over the world. You've seen governments trying to put together delicate coalitions. And I think politicians only have so much time and countries only have so much money to look at the problems at hand. And I think they react first to those problems that need their attention most, those that will probably get them re-elected, or those problems that can fix an economy. Um, I think all politicians know about global warming. They knew about the dangers of pandemics, um, but there's only so much that they can do. The warnings were there. You know, when I did my research again for fever, uh, I read so many articles and books saying that a pandemic was coming. It was a matter of time. I remember reading something that Bill Gates said a number of years ago. So we were all warned, but like many disasters, we think, well, it's a possibility, but it's not going to happen. And then it happens, and then we think, oh, darn.
We consider ourselves sometimes as gods. I mean, human beings forget they are just human beings, and your books always point that they are, with their fragility, with their doubts. What's so interesting about this contrast for you?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we do regard ourselves sometimes as some sort of gods. I think one of the major problems for me as an African is the attitude of human beings thinking that they are on the top of the pyramid of life, and they have the right to decide on other species. Uh, that human life is more valuable than the life of all the wonderful animals that we have in the world, and we don't mind exploring and exploiting ecosystems for our benefit, even if we destroy it. And I think to me that is the real danger of us thinking that we are these mighty beings, that we are like gods because we can control nature, we can control so many things in our world. And it's a very dangerous thing because we are at the moment destroying the planet because of that. We're destroying nature, we're destroying the ecosystems in Africa and in South America, all over the world, really. And that to me is terrifying.
Now, in the sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa is the most touched by the coronavirus. What's your opinion about the way the country manages it during the time of the containment and since you came out of it?
Well, let me just say that I think I'm not sure that we are the country in sub-Saharan Africa most affected by the coronavirus. I think if you look at per capita infection, we are probably the country in sub-Saharan Africa that has got the best reporting of our statistics. We have the best infrastructure to gather those statistics, and we also the country with a free media, free press, where the information gets published. So one has to be very careful not to say, you know, that a lot of bad things are also happening in terms of the coronavirus in other sub-Saharan countries in Africa. How our government is doing, I think our government's intentions are fantastic. I think our government reacted swiftly, they reacted decisively, and the lockdown specifications that they announced were all mostly, I think, good. But I think the execution has been very bad. And that is a problem in South Africa and in Southern Africa, I think in general, is that governments often have lofty and wonderful ideas, but the execution gets lost. We have major problems with corruption. We have major problems with the inefficiency of government departments. We also have real problems with local government, where inefficiency is a real problem. So to summarize, the intentions were great, the execution has been really, really bad.
Now, through all your novels, you give us a portrait of your country, a portrait of South Africa. And in Prooi, which is La Proie, you write that since apartheid, our nation has been living the most dark period of our history. Why and how will the coronavirus even more accentuate the corruption, the violence, and the poverty that is very present in your book and your country today?
Well, I wrote the book during the rule of our previous president. And our previous president and his cronies were incredibly corrupt. And they, they destroyed the economy. They stole billions of rands. In those terms, it was a very dark period, the darkest period since the end of apartheid. I'm very happy to say that we have a new president. We've had a new president now for about 2 years. He's a man of great integrity, but he has such a difficult task now to rebuild the country after the economic devastation of our previous president. And a lot of other people who are still in government. You know, our current president uh, he's in a very precarious position because he does not have the full support of his party. There are still members of parliament and members of the ruling party that were part of the corruption during the previous president's rule. So it's been a really, really hard time. And trying to get out of that devastation, economic devastation, and then coronavirus comes. Our economy was already very, very hurt. So the impact of the coronavirus on our economy is now just, you know, it's tragic to see the thousands and thousands of people who have lost their jobs, so many businesses that have gone under, more jobs lost, less people to pay tax because less people earn an income. So it's going to be a long, hard road ahead for South Africa.
Another long road is the one of racism, is the one of apartheid. Even though it has changed, there are still consequences of that and still inequalities. And we also saw on international level with the case of George Floyd and all this worldwide also virus, which is racism, that is very present. How did it echo you? How did it give you a sensation in South Africa that this is really not over?
Sorry, the line was very bad there. Could you just repeat the last part of your question?
Of course, how did it echo you? All this part of racism coming back again, never died, but being still so strong, also accentuated by the hatred, by the violence, by the fear of economics and poverty. How did you feel it as a South African?
Well, obviously, incredibly disturbing. Uh, you know, you think because you're in a country where racism once powered a whole regime under apartheid, that it is sort of contained to South Africa. And then you realize, especially with what has happened in America, that racism is truly an international problem. It is a disease that is international. It is as prevalent as COVID, and it is doing probably as much damage. Um, I'm an idealist, you know, and since the end of apartheid, I've really believed that we can build a society in South Africa that is not based on race, a multicultural society where we can all get along and all build together for a new country. But then over the years, you start realizing that there are still racists on all sides on the political spectrum, and we will still have it with us. I think the biggest problem with racism is that children learn racism in their homes. So it's a perpetuating thing, and I don't know how we're going to eradicate it. I really don't know. It's my wife and I often speak about it, about how we really battle to understand racism because why hate? Nothing good has ever come in the world from hate. All the good things in the world, all the progress that we've made was built on love and mutual respect for each other, of solidarity with one another, of fraternity. Um, we find it so hard to understand how people can hate so much and how people can hate other people simply because they're different. I don't understand that, and that's why I don't have a solution. I don't know what we're going to do.
Now, your last novel, La Proie, is also a very international novel. It's not only turned on South Africa, but on different countries worldwide. And you write that China, America, that we're so much speaking about, and Russia are giving a new world order. What's worrying you about the new world order? It's coming out, and also because of the coronavirus, it's even changing faster.
Yeah. Well, there are so many things that worry me. You know, I think the influence of China in Africa, I think that's a worrying thing. Uh, because the more America withdraws, the more that the West withdraws from Africa, the more it creates a vacuum in which China can come in. China is not a democracy. China is not a country that respects human rights. So that's not a good thing to South Africa. The worse it is going in America. America has always held the torchlight for democracy and for liberty, for civil liberties, for equality. And what we're seeing in America now, America is no longer the beacon of these things. And that worries me tremendously. It seems to me that America has lost a lot of its influence on the world. It's lost its will to be involved internationally. It is becoming more and more insular, and I think that is hugely worrying because it leaves a void. And if we have Putin's Russia and China moving into this void, that's not a good thing.
Now, do you believe that true books, that true suspenses like yours, of course, it's the pleasure of reading, but that you can also show something of the world and maybe change it a little?
Well, my books are, all of them, I think, to a small extent, a hopeful vision of what we can be, a vision of how we can live together in South Africa, irrespective of our differences. So in those terms, you know, if it does mean something to someone, that would be wonderful. It's always a danger to try, especially with crime and thriller fiction, with suspense fiction, to try and preach a message, to give a message to readers. I think one must focus on making the book work as a piece of suspense fiction. And if the reader gets anything else, then I'm very happy that that would happen. I try to make my characters as human as possible, with all their frailties, with the good and the bad. And if that gives someone else comfort, then I'm very happy that it does.
Well, thank you so much, Deon Meyer. Goeiedag, as we say, and tot ziens.
Thank you so much. Goeiedag en tot ziens.
And please take care. Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.